Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 17th, 2017. Casa de Rosingen, Rancho de Rosingen, Santa Rosa, USA. Is this the most dangerous place to live in America? I don't know. I'm starting to think. Between earthquakes and fires, I'm just ready for Missy Jen to come out one morning with her shit packed and
laser beams from the sky.
Anyway, guys, good morning. Morning. Tomorrow, of course, is the big day. It's Missy Jen's first infusion therapy coming up for a new treatment that slows the progression of MS. And, of course, that's a good thing. Anything that slows eventually is the pathway to stopping and then potentially reversing. So that is a really good thing. And I feel like things are very close in science. It's a good time to, it's never a good time to have something debilitating like that, but it's better than 20, 30 years ago. That's for darn sure when I first started getting involved in the world of medicine. But anyway, I'm going to talk about that today. You can see by the title of this morning's Chooch down below that the second responders, the lawyers, have arrived. And I was kind of wondering if last Monday marked the beginning of Sunday night at 9:40 p.m. was really kickoff time. And it really is still underway right now. They're probably at the 60% containment on average. But I think everybody's breathing a sigh of relief. And over the hills, here come the lawyers.
Lawyers, the big Beamers, the Mercedes, the Rolls Royce.
I was listening to some, our local station here is KSRO, which has been around since, it's now celebrating its 70th. It's been around since 1937 in here, and it's witnessed a lot of stuff here with earthquakes and fires before and flooding and a lot of catastrophe. And I was just waiting, like I said today, and then the lawyers started appearing on the talk show, talking of threatening the members of the board of supervisors that you better lawyer up because we're going to have a lot to say about first responders and the lack of warning that people had when it came to the outbreak of the wildfire. And we're going to drill down and talk a little bit about that today. We're going to be presenting the facts to you. We report, you decide whether, this was a lawyerable event or not. Correct, Missy Jen?
Correct.
Now, let's go back in time, and we're finally starting to be able to put a timeline together. There's a little town to the northeast of Santa Rosa, 16 miles as the crow flies. It's called Calistoga, and it's really a wonderful little town. It has the mineral baths there. It has the underground active steam and things that comes. It's an earthquake zone here, but it's a very special place. It has the mud baths, and it has the mineral baths. It has what they call the little Old Faithful geyser. Well, there's a little place there called Tubbs Lane, and that's where the fire, that's why the fire was called the Tubbs Fire, because they think it began at that area. Now, at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock on Sunday evening, I remember specifically telling Missy Jen that the winds outside at 8 p.m. are violent outside. And I specifically told her I worry about, we have 4 very large redwood trees that are on our northern flank here, northwest. And I always worry when a big wind comes in that they're going to come over and just take us out one night. You remember me coming in that night and telling me?
Hit us on the head and knock us plumb out.
You remember me coming in that Sunday night and telling
Rosa girl and me and George and...
It was really the only time in the last year that I've worried about the wind because I knew we had just come down from Lake Tahoe that afternoon, and we knew that they were talking about a cold front was going to be coming through. Well, we thought it was going to be in a mountain event because it's always windier up in the mountains on the high ridges. So we weren't expecting that big wind on Sunday night. It blew up to 70 miles an hour. Tropical force winds, high-end tropical force, almost touching hurricane force winds coming in. So you remember I told you that night I came in and told you it is really windy. Like this is not a really windy city usually, that Santa Rosa.
That's up in Chicago.
So what we didn't know at that time is at 9:40 p.m. the first call went into PG&E because they've started to release some of the call logs of dispatchers calling in, or trucks calling into dispatchers because, well, the dispatchers get the calls from customers that report things like I'm seeing sparking, maybe a line's down or a transformer blew at 9:40 p.m. 16 miles to the northeast of Santa Rosa in the town of Calistoga on Tubbs Lane, there was the first report of the whole incident came in over there of somebody calling in and saying there was some sparking, and then 2 minutes later, 9:42, the reports of a transformer blown came in, and at that point I think it was pretty much game on, and I think they're finally going to figure out that it was a down power line because of the high winds and the number of trees that PG&E's lines cross through, and they're not noted for being the best about keeping trees clear from the power lines. It's been an ongoing issue for PG&E. But
yeah, we can attest to that.
At that point, we can assume that the fire started there and driven from the northeast direction, started moving right down towards the city of Santa Rosa. We had no way of knowing that. That was 16 miles beginning at 9:40 p.m. Now, by the time that the first responders from Napa County, where Calistoga is, got a chance to respond, and I'm not even sure if Calistoga has a volunteer. It's a very small little town over there. It has a volunteer fire company or professional county crew there, but their response, I'm sure, was out there. But by that time, driven by the high winds, they were totally out of the picture. You know, that fire was over the hill and probably on its first mile downward, coursing over the mountain between Sonoma and Napa Valley, moving down in a southwest direction at that point and coming down and bearing down on Santa Rosa. Now, people saw it. Obviously, you know, there was people that saw a glow in the sky, but what was unknown to people was the speed at which this thing was being driven by the 70-mile-an-hour winds. Now, Santa Rosa is a city of about 200,000 people, and it only has 116 people in its fire department. It's not a huge fire department. Of course, they're spread all over the city in various locations. We have one about half a mile from our house. We have the Roseland station there and some other things. So the initial response probably went out from the east side of town to go up there. Well, probably, I think within an hour, they had calls from other fire departments, Windsor and other fire departments, that we've got a real situation going on here. And I think by that time, by the time that fire had come 2 miles, crested over the hill and started coming down, being driven by those winds, I think that the fire departments already judged that they were at that point in time not going to be able to contain, because there were professional firefighters already looking at that on the ridge and determining there's no way that we're going to be able to put this fire out. It's not going to happen. We don't have the apparatus. It's midnight. The wind is howling. What do? You turn from fighting the fire to saving lives. Now, we don't have a network that was known that we have now. Everybody knows that. It's called the Nixie Network or something like that, where you can text 888-777 and put your zip code to them, and then they give you all the alerts. Nobody knew about this kind of stuff before. But is that the fault of the system for not making sure that people were informed? Because the last time a fire of this magnitude happened was when I was 6 years old. It was 1964. This just tells you how far back you have to stretch. So I think at that point they made the logical choice that we cannot fight the fire at night, although I'm sure there were hoses trying to be deployed. I think they probably, Santa Rosa firefighters in conjunction with Windsor and some of them, tried to put an initial fire line, but was 70 miles an hour with the embers being caught and blown hundreds of feet in the air. It was useless to have a fire line. So then at that point they decided to get the law enforcement, the fire department to go around to try to be ahead of this fire and start knocking on, get out, evacuate, beeping the horns, getting on the loud hailers and warning people to get out. Now you've got, if you're not familiar with the hills of California, the roads are like this. Right? I mean, they are crazy. They're switchbacks, and you have to have a big commitment of people to get up in these hills and warn all of these people. The density only began after about the second hour or so that the fire roared into Santa Rosa when they knew it wasn't going to be contained. They barely had time to go through the upper reaches of Montecito by 2 a.m. in the morning when Charles Schultz's widow fled 2 a.m. in the morning from her home in Montecito Heights, and that was Charles Schultz's widow, the creator of Peanuts. This thing had already been underway for about 4 hours. But by this time, it had already traveled about 10 to 12 miles towards Santa Rosa. So it only had the last 4 miles to do, and of course, that's the high-density area. By that time, they got fire, they've got sheriffs, they've got Santa Rosa, every car that they can muster, any kind of service vehicle, is running around, knocking on doors, and yelling for people to get out. You can see the video of the Sonoma County Sheriff wearing his body cam, running around. And I mean, the fire is just raging outside of his window and stuff, running around telling people to get out. So, the bottom line then is when it hits Santa Rosa, it's probably at that point about a mile wide, the swath that it's cutting, moving to the southwest. And there's just, it was amazing. They were able to get into the mobile home park and start evacuating people. And then finally at a coffee park on the west side. Now, God knows what's going on in Coffee Park. That remains under military lockdown. I mean, I don't know. The rumors, you can imagine how stressed people are. But is that a lawyerable event? That is the question. That 16-mile terror, that firestorm that covered 16 miles from 9:40 p.m. on Sunday till I would judge about 4 a.m. in the morning when it finally ran out of fuel in western Santa Rosa. Do you see anything that's actionable on the part of law? It's a big question. There was no clamoring for an early warning system. There was nobody encouraging people to sign up. I mean, most people never even knew this thing existed. But does that mean that it's something that the county and the city and the state are responsible for? Because and to a large extent, this fire straddled 2 counties, Napa and Sonoma County, various cities, Calistoga, Santa Rosa. There's a lot of entities involved here, so where do you really fix the blame for that? Well, I guess if I had to make a prediction, ultimately I'd say that PG&E is going to bear a very large brunt, and I'm not in no way, shape, or form saying that PG&E was responsible at this point for the fire. But when you take high winds coupled with trees, and you have a recipe for disaster, and I think that's exactly what happened with this freak wind that came up with this northeast wind that howled in here that fateful night. So, like I said, they're already out there telling everybody, lawyer up. It's going to be a long process, and you can bet there's some very wealthy folks that have retained counsel, and anybody that's not going to be made whole or whatever. So it's going to be a lawyer's feeding trough, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you see it. Because the law is supposed to make things equitable and make sure that people are made whole to the greatest extent possible. Stay tuned. It's going to be interesting to see, because the second responders have arrived. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this morning and engaging us in a little bit of a theoretical discussion here. We love having you guys along, and put your comments down below and share your thoughts. and we'll check them
Because
out.
if you want to know quickly my opinion, there is nobody to blame but the fire itself, because the fire is the one that destroyed everything.
There we go. So I don't think that, is it reasonable to expect PG&E to take care of every possible tree blowing situation? Probably not. But we'll see how it all plays out. All right, it's all part of the recovery process that'll be coming up. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have yourselves a wonderful Tuesday.
Mwah.